What's going on, guys? Tukey here, back again, and you already know by the title of this episode. Today, we're talking about NHL 24. The full reveal trailer is out now on EA's channel. If you haven't checked that out yet, feel free to go watch it in full, because as I go through that trailer and sprinkle my own thoughts through, I will be pausing the video on and off. So if you want to watch it uninterrupted, again, head over to the EA channel for that full video. But yeah, throughout this, I'll be giving my thoughts on all the new features that are in the game for NHL 24. Get my own personal thoughts as well based on my experiences with the game so far, my experiences in Vancouver as well at EA Studios last week. If you want to hear more about that as well, feel free to check out the episode of the Tukey's Take podcast that just dropped as well, where I talk about that entire experience and NHL 24 in general. So with that, let's get down to business. Let's go through this trailer because it's a little bit of a bulky one compared to what we normally get for an initial reveal trailer. It's over 5 minutes long. Doesn't normally happen that way. And honestly, there is a lot to look at. They do drop gameplay pretty much immediately, and well, they drop a body pretty much immediately. We'll see that all throughout the trailer. Maybe my favorite new addition to the game is the physicality. The way they have changed the checking engine is awesome. Again, for those that already know, of course, there are essentially three different types of checks in the game right now. For 24, you're going to be able to flick the right stick to bump. You're going to be able to kind of load up that right stick to absolutely cronwall somebody, and there's a shoulder check option as well assigned to the B button or circle on PlayStation. And of course, the hip checks are back, the best they have been in about 10 years in this franchise, really ever since old 2BC Johnny Superbman showcased that Hercules check and launched Sidney Crosby into the front row. Hip checks haven't been that good since that happened. Coincidence? I think not, but ultimately it's going to be great to see the checking game back in full effect. But what I love about this trailer is, man, they just immediately go for it. They don't really hype it up with this kind of like fake footage or mixing in real world footage. They just go for it with legitimate gameplay. Of course, including the hits into the bench, which could still happen in the prior games. NHL 23, for example, they weren't exactly intentional, but it could happen. Crossplay is here. So this was announced on Twitter the other day when it was finally made, really kind of open just how much things have changed behind the scenes at EA. Again, the two new lead producers in Mike and Chris are really leading the way in wanting as much open communication, not just with someone like myself who might have an affiliation with them through their Game Changer program, the Design Council, whatever the hell you want to call it, but with everyone in general. I think for the longest time, people still thought it was Rammer or Ben Ross, and those guys aren't involved anymore. There is a new vision, a new set of voices leading the way for what this game could be, and this was absolutely huge for them. Imperative for NHL 24 to get full crossplay into the game, of course. So it's Xbox One and PS4, and then of course the Xbox Series consoles and PS5 that'll be able to connect and of course mix and match now for teams as well, which is fantastic. This is pretty much going to guarantee the ability to be able to get games late into the year and not have to sit around for all that long when it comes to the matchmaking. I am surprised they didn't talk about that a little bit more, but I suppose they already did. But again, the key is behind the World of Chel side of things. You have the mixed club, something that they didn't necessarily talk about here in this trailer, which I was a little bit surprised by, were some of the other changes as well coming to eShul, World of Chel, whatever you prefer. The bag system is now gone. In its place is a battle pass system and a storefront that gives you the ability to get what you want as soon as you want it. And of course, the best part about it, those items carry over from game to game. So if you buy, say, a special skin a la Fortnite, which is kind of what we're getting, that'll carry over to NHL 25 and beyond. But we are indeed getting that, the ability to kind of get different, character skins. Not everyone's going to look like a professional player on the eShul side of things. Some people will hate that. I personally don't mind it because it is what it is. If I want to replicate real hockey for the most part, that's what the offline modes are for. The online modes are It really is kind of transferring over to the Fortnite Rocket League style of things in terms of, user expression and letting it be fun first and foremost. I think that's mostly where they're going at this stage. And should be noted as well, the creation suite has changed as well. It's a lot more streamlined, updated. It works tremendously for both online and offline. So for you fellow roster editors out there, you're good to go. This is the biggest change to gameplay right here, though. I mentioned the body checking, and at the end of the day, the sustained pressure system, and as a result, goalie fatigue as well. And the way this works hand in hand completely changes the gameplay. Gone are the days of you can only score the meta goals, essentially. If you work hard enough at grinding down a defense and an opposing goaltender, you're going to be able to score goals in different ways, which is awesome. They have a bunch of new goalie save animations as well to work with this. It is worth noting right now that they are still tinkering with how long it takes to build up full pressure and kind of just what the effect is. So that is something they are still actively tinkering right now, and I would fully expect that to continue to be something that they modify throughout the year. That's another big thing. NHL 24, yeah, they're not just going to kind of leave it as is. They are going to be updating things throughout the year based on community feedback. So, something like this might be scary to some. I think, at the very least, head into NHL 24 with the idea of, okay, good, changes don't necessarily mean good or bad, but it is different. And let's be honest, the EA NHL series, the franchise as a whole, needed something different. But yeah, I mean, there will be some ridiculous goalie saves. There will be times where your goalie looks a little bit foolish depending on where they're at, but I'm a fan of this. Just in general, the gameplay, I've been able to play a fair amount of it so far, and it is fun. It is different. Like I said, the showcasing some of the goalie highlights here. Goalies in general, especially computer goalies. I mean, there is still an emphasis for eShul to have human goaltenders. AI goalies in general, there's going to be some goals they give up where you're frustrated, but there are going to be some hilariously top-notch, hilariously ridiculous saves, for lack of a better term. So all in all, that is easily the biggest feature of the gameplay changes here, is the combination of the exhaust engine, which is that sustained pressure system in the attacking zone, how that's going to kind of change the meta, because at the same time, we talked about this on the podcast. Sin mentioned one of the things where, you talk about high-level eShul clubs and how important the trap game has been. There is now more of a reason, more of a cause to go out and be aggressive and not immediately turtle up. It should change the meta quite a bit, especially for the sixes side of things, but of course for a 1v1 setting as well. Here we get a look at the new checking system as well. And again, like I said, this is one of my favorite aspects of the game. The hip check has been remapped to X on Xbox or square on PlayStation. And again, it is the most effective it has been in years, and I absolutely adore the checking system in this game. It's fantastic because it works like it should. You can commit to a hit. If you land it, man, you floor somebody. Even the AI in versus or play now or franchise mode, be a pro, they are well aware of these new systems, by the way, especially the checking. It's the idea that, man, if you commit to a hit and you succeed, you get rewarded for it. If you miss, man, you really, really screwed up. It's, checking finally feels like it's back to the game within the game, the strategy, the timing of it all, instead of just being a bump fest, which the game could still end up being depending on how effective bumping ends up being. Time will tell in the finished product, but you'll see a lot of hits like that where you just have someone dropping a shoulder and then driving it through. And again, very, very satisfying when you land it. And similar to that, if you miss a hit badly, it can go very, very poorly. But some of the hip checks, man, are just so fun. I can't overstate just how fun it is at this stage. And you got a brief look there. They talk about it a little bit more in the trailer. At the icon passing as well, which, some of these features, I think in a way, as they talk about the reverse check here, and I'm actually going to rewind to that. Some of these features like icon passing used to be in older games. It is nice to finally see them added in. It's very similar to Madden this year, bringing back Superstar Mode and the training camp minigames, things that were in the game almost 20 years ago. And yeah, you can have two opinions of it. My opinion is, for the most part, a combination of the two, and that is I'm happy to see them back, but I can also acknowledge why the hell were they removed. This is something very interesting. Reverse checking was in the game for the past couple of years, but for the most part, it was tied to back at you as a superstar ability, if not an outright X factor. So you really wouldn't see it initial that much unless someone was running the Enforcer. Now it is as simple as clicking in R3. The fake shot, for the record, has been moved to left bumper /L1 and R3. So there'll be a couple of times where you might try to run a fake shot and reverse hit somebody when you first get your hands on the game. It's a pretty quick adjustment. There's that. And the protect puck has been changed as well from the A button over to holding the stick left or right while also clicking in L3. So there are a couple of control changes with this new scheme, but after a game, essentially, you pretty much get used to it and it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But reverse checks right now in the builds that we've played, very, very powerful, and certainly being discussed as something that needs to be kept a close eye on. Probably going to be tuned throughout the year. In my experiences, though, and I mentioned this again on the pod, if you try to reverse check Ryan Reeves with Cole Caulfield, you're still probably going to have a bad time. Again, at least in my experience. But yeah, it is a weapon right now. So they didn't just leave it. So there's all this new physicality just for the defensive side of things. The offense does have a way to counterbalance it. But if you go for a reverse check and someone wasn't even going for the hit, man, you're going to lose that puck instantly off a poke check. So again, all about timing and strategy throughout the gameplay. And again, a hit into the bench. Broken glass there off of a check. Also very happy to mention, shots can break the glass as well. You can go full Dion Phaneuf. I actually had that happen in a game while I was in Vancouver, missing the net and shattering the glass. And not like that, honestly, where you see the full collapse. It was almost like a gunshot, essentially, where it's just that one cracked spot on the glass. It wasn't the full thing that shattered. Although I do wonder if you could do that with like a Zdeno Chara slap shot. As here they're talking about one of the other changes, total control skill moves. So what this is essentially is the idea that some skills have been remapped to the face buttons on a controller. You know, right now, it's not something that can be remapped. At the same time, you have, say, something like the Michigan attached to the Y button, and that's a little bit powerful. That's something that they're also looking at changing and tweaking, and I think that's the main thing to take away from this, is there are some very exciting, promising gameplay changes. Right now, though, jury's out on which ones will be solid at launch, because, again, as I can confirm, they are still very much working on a lot of this. They're working on it based off of consistent feedback, not just from the game changers. There will be the community feedback off of the playtest, and again, EA also has their own side playtesting, right? Like there's the whole playtesting department. It's not just, oh, they listened to what the game changers said and changed the game. We are only one aspect, and myself as a game changer, as a community member, you guys as a community member, it's one of those things where there are a lot of different voices that kind of lend feedback that can ultimately have an effect on the game. They don't just take it from one aspect or one set of people. The face button deking, I think if they could remap which ones you have, and also maybe the effectiveness of some of them, maybe have attributes matter just a little bit more in that regard, I think it could be good. You know, I'm someone who's not against the idea that, you know, the Michigan's on a face button, because at the end of the day, more often than not, you're still going to have skill in knowing when to use it, as opposed to, again, having to be an absolute freak to use a skill in the game. I understand why what is such a popular highlight reel goal right now, why they would want to make it a little bit more accessible. As they confirm the new vision passing, which again is icon passing in the franchise for the first time. This was something else where, again, this was in games before. This was in Gretzky 05 and 06. but it's long overdue, and I am happy to see it here. That's a sick pass, by the way, but I am very happy to see this feature into the game. It's one of those things where you could say, why did it take so long? My argument is, at least it is here now. And as they talk about in the trailer, it's not always perfect. You know, you do still need proper timing. Players with higher attributes and passing, it ends up working out a little bit better for them. And one-touch passing as well is also great. I mean, again, if you have the speed, you have the vision on the triggers, R2, RT, whatever it might be, whatever your console of choice is, it's one of those things where you're going to be able to rip somebody apart. This is another one currently still very much being worked on based on feedback that is there. Again, as you go through, it's the idea of, obviously this trailer explains everything to you, but just my thoughts on each thing. I love this change. I do. It's the idea that if you let go of the left stick, you're centered right back to the goal. There are a couple of new things for goalies this year. That is primarily it. And of course, the guessing system is back, as they call it, the instinct system. It's one of those things where, again, about 10 years ago, we had it in the game, but it was very basic, left or right. Now the instinct system is based on the 5 attributes that a goalie has: stick high, stick low, glove high, glove low, and 5-hole. You have to guess right. If you do, hey, you get a little reward. You guess wrong, something might go in if you didn't use the system. Yeah, as compared to if you didn't use the system at all. So this is something where, again, they add something in where you have the ability for players to separate themselves in terms of a skill gap. That idea of, here we are, can the best goalies in the game, and I got a little bit distracted there, but I'm leaving this in, can the best goalies in the game utilize that better than most people? The answer will be yes, and they will make saves that, the average goaltender simply can't make. So I think human goalies, you're going to see an even greater skill gap, especially in the competitive scene, which is great. But obviously, the game, they have their pre-order bonuses, as they always do. I mean, for those who care, it's mostly HUT-based, although there are World of Chel Battle Pass modifiers, because, again, the Battle Pass is now in World of Chel, which I got to be honest, again, I don't mind. The bag system disappearing, perfectly okay with. It was long overdue to get rid of that. But as well, you're going to have options in the storefront, those kind of custom character skins that also come with like their preset attributes that, honestly, some of them do look pretty sick. They're almost mascot-esque. I don't know if they're actually going to have the NHL mascots available there, but they're just doing some cool things with World of Chel to really kind of flesh it out a little bit more. Like I said, at the end of the day, there's a Battle Pass in Chel. Is that this huge selling feature? No, it isn't. Is it a welcome change? Yes. And that's really kind of what this year was about, was finally getting gameplay and aspects of like ESHL up to a kind of modern standard, if you think about it. And obviously, they have added in some other things. I believe that was the end of the trailer, and indeed it was. There were a couple of other things worth noting. Obviously, again, the exhaust engine is the big one for gameplay, the new checking, the skill moves, the vision passing. This was a huge year for gameplay and a huge year for World of Chel. Now, obviously, I mentioned HUT here because of what you see for the pre-order items. Ultimate Team did not get a lot. They changed the way kind of objective tracking works, as well as bringing back HUT moments. Now, they did put a little bit more effort into it. Before every moment, you'll get a little video of the moment as it happened with a voiceover from James Sapolsky. But at the end of the day, that's the one big change for Ultimate Team. There will be some other smaller changes, but not any like big, huge features that some people might have been holding on to hope for. And it's the same way for franchise mode and for Be a Pro. At the end of the day, it is not a big year for those game modes. There are certain things about the presentation that you might have caught in that trailer. Different kind of celebration effects that are there, really kind of putting a spotlight on the player when they score. I will say the crowd is the best it's ever been in a hockey game. which is great. Finally, like the atmosphere actually feels on point. And Ray Ferraro has been replaced as the color commentator in the game. It is now Cheryl Pounder of TSN. And obviously, as someone who loves commentary, I care about this a little bit more. She's fantastic. She really is. From what I've heard so far in a dozen or so games that I've played, the commentary in the game is pretty good. I know James Cebulski is not everyone's cup of tea, but aside from that, they also have, they've done stuff, easy for me to say, with the boards and stuff like that. It'll display shots and the amount of hits, face-offs won, stuff like that, as they tried to kind of bring their own twist and flair to the idea of EA, replicating what we see on real NHL broadcasts, even if I'm still not a huge fan of the digital boards. But overall, I think my biggest takeaway is this. Every year they have a limited amount for what they can add in. We are in the middle of August right now. They've already started work on NHL 25. Right now they're finishing up the work for 24, but the idea of the pre-planning stages and the early beginnings of, developing a game, like they've already started on 25. I might get called a shill by some people, even though I don't presume those people to be all that familiar with this channel. You guys that are regulars here know that I am very, very critical, to the point where people have questioned how I actually still have a line of communication with the devs here. But, it's one of those things where there's only so much they can add in a given year. That's why you'll often see one mode get a big focus, and then you'll see some sprinkled changes here and there for other modes, because they are a team. The Ultimate Team guy doesn't necessarily just work on Ultimate Team. It could be something where it's like, hey, we need the resources here because we're making major gameplay changes, major changes to the world of Chel, almost an all hands on deck kind of idea. So it's that reason why, just this crazy schedule they have of year in and year out results. It is why you get one or two kind of big features a year. In this case, there's more than that, and then the sprinkled in features. I do think NHL 24 represents a big step up for this game as a whole. Every year I normally throw out the term cautious optimism, which was my kind of code word for like, well, it's not quite what we want it to be. I do think 24 is that first year of like, oh, shit, they are actually making really good strides forward towards improving this game. And I think people will be able to see that there is that new vision at the helm, that there has been new blood kind of injected into this franchise that oh so desperately needed it at this stage. That said, to avoid the risk of repeating myself and rambling, I will stop here and just say, hey, if you have questions in the comments, let me know. I will answer any and everything that I can. I obviously cannot answer everything that I know, but I will be able to kind of fill in some gaps there if you guys have questions about anything else, because there is, surprisingly, but thankfully, a lot to talk about when it comes to NHL 24. This is a big, big year for the game, and based off of my read on, again, Mike, Chris, the new guys at the helm, I don't think this is a blip on the radar. I've been able to talk with devs specifically, especially on the franchise side of things. Like, yeah, it's a down year for franchise. There's a lot of little quality of life things that we've been asking for a bit, but it's not like GMC's coming back this year or something like that. But I do know the roadmap for what they're planning for the future, and I'd like to think this is the start of a very good era for the NHL series, which was so desperately needed. But with that, hey, again, I like to ramble around here, so we'll call things quits for now. Like I said, leave your questions in the comments. I'll be happy to get to them. And with that, keep an eye out. We still have NHL franchise mode on this channel. I mentioned the Tukey's Take podcast, the second channel as well, TWO GIE 24, the home of MLB franchise, Madden franchise now as well. Keep an eye out there. For now, thank you for listening to the ramblings of a madman, and I'll see you guys soon.